Hi, this is Steve, K8BZ, and if you've been following along in this series of videos and we're able to interconnect all the equipment, you should be at the point where in IP Serial, the dumb terminal program, that you can verify that you are communicating with the TNC. You do that by getting the command prompt. Now it's time to go in and start setting up some commands in the TNC to make it function the way you want it to. So we're going to do that through the dumb terminal. So we will open Packet Message Manager, and we are going to go to the dumb terminal, which is called IP Serial. You do that from the Tools menu. At the bottom of the Tools menu is Interactive Packet. And the first item in the submenu is Serial/COM port, and that opens IP Serial. When IP Serial is open, you should click the Connect button at the top. And first thing I'm going to do is turn the monitor off. And when you get there, you should see the command prompt. At the command prompt, type M space off and push enter. We want to turn the monitor off for this presentation. Once you do that, I want to explain a couple of things. It would be good to pause this video after you get some instruction. Pause the video, switch over to your terminal program, IP Serial, and practice what was described in the video. Then after you practice it a few times and can do what was described, then switch back to the video. And you can resume the video, or if you had difficulty, you can rewind the video, look at the instruction again, pause the video, switch back to the terminal program, and practice the instruction. A good way to switch between the video and the terminal is using the Alt-Tab method. You probably are already familiar with it, but for those that may not be, when you have more than one application open on a computer, you can switch between the application in a few different ways. But a quick, easy way to do that is to hold the Alt key down with the thumb of your left hand and then touch the Tab key. Every time you touch the Tab key while you're holding the Alt key down, it'll switch between all the open applications on your computer. So when you get to the application you want, you release the Alt key and you're live in that program. To switch back to the video, hold the Alt key, push Tab until you get back to the video. Release the Alt key and you're back at the video. Then you can unpause the video or rewind the video and continue on. So there's going to be quite a bit of instruction here, and to watch the entire video and take notes and go back and try to duplicate it unless you have some previous experience with Packet would probably be a little too confusing. But if you do it in small steps, I think the information will stick with you a little better. So we'll switch back to the terminal program, and we're at the command prompt. Now, the first thing I'm going to describe are the command mode and the conversation mode. Right now, we are in the command mode. We know that because we see the command prompt every time we push the enter key. In the command mode, you're only communicating with the TNC. You're not transmitting anything over the radio for the most part. There are occasions where you will begin transmissions from the command prompt by initiating a connect to another station, for example. But for the most part, the command mode is used to enter commands to the TNC to make the TNC behave in the way you want it to behave. If you want to switch to the conversation mode, where you're transmitting unconnected packets, you type the word converse, or abbreviate it CONV, and push enter. Now, you don't see the command prompt anymore. Every time I push enter, it's actually transmitting my call sign, but it's not sending any data. If I want it to send something, I'll type whatever I want it to send. BZ testing. And if I push enter, it's actually going to transmit that. Now, if I want to see what's being transmitted, I'll go back to the command mode by holding the control key and pushing C. That's how you switch between the command and conversation mode. Let me do that again. To switch to conversation mode, type the abbreviation CONV and push enter. Now we're in the conversation mode. where it will actually transmit every time I push enter. To switch back to the command mode, hold the control character or the control key and push C, and that takes you back to the command mode. Now I'm going to turn the monitor on. The shortcut for monitor is the letter M and then on. So the monitor is on now. Let's go back to the conversation mode, and I'm going to send this. This is a test again. Now when I push enter, we'll actually monitor what was being transmitted. So this is what a station just monitoring the channel would have seen when I transmitted that. They would see K8BZ sent to CQ, which if you're not connected, that's the default that it shows your packets are being sent to when they're unconnected. I have the date and time stamp turned on, so it's going to timestamp that with the date and time. This tells you what type of packet it is. It's an unprotocol information packet. Unprotocol means it's not connected. Some people even refer to that as unconnected. So those two terms are interchangeable, but the correct technical term is unprotocol or unproto information packet. And this is the information contained in the packet. This is K8BZ testing. So we'll go back to the command mode. So the thing I want you to get here is switching between the command mode and the conversation mode. The command mode is used to send commands to the TNC. Conversation mode is used to actually transmit packets. Okay, so we're all set between the command and conversation mode. Now we're going to talk about commands. Commands are instructions that tell the TNC how to operate and to set certain parameters in the TNC, and there are a few of them we're going to have to set. Commands can be entered in a long version or an abbreviated version. What you do at the command prompt is you type the command you want to set, type a space, and then the parameter that you want to use to set that command. Now let's take a look at the list of commands that are available. I'm going to use H for help, or you can type help and it'll list the commands that are available, or I can just type the abbreviated version, the letter H. All of these are commands that are available right now. Okay, so I can set, for example, my call. If I want to know what that command is all about, in a Cantronics TNC, and I better say right off the bat, I'm talking about Cantronics TNCs here. The command set in a Cantronics TNC is going to be very similar to all other TNCs, but it's not going to be 100% identical. I'm making these videos for packet operators in Michigan's Homeland Security Region 3 to use to teach them how to set up their packet stations for emergency communications. And since all of the counties in Region 3 were provided Cantronics TNCs to set up bulletin board stations, I'm using that command set in these instructions. Now, if you at your personal station have a different brand of TNC, the commands might not be 100% identical. Most of the individual commands will be, but some of them may have slight variances. So if what I'm describing here doesn't work for your TNC, you'll have to check your TNC manual and see what the difference is in some of the commands. For the most part, this is all going to work. But there could be some things that don't, and when I get to things that I know are different in different TNCs, I'll try to remember to point it out. But it's kind of the viewer's responsibility to realize that I'm describing this using the command set in a Cantronics TNC. Okay, so with that, in a Cantronics TNC, you can type a question mark and the command. For example, my call. And it'll tell you what that command is. My call is the station's call sign. So if we want to set our call sign, we're going to type my call and then a space and then our call sign and push enter. Let me turn the monitor back off. This that you just saw was a monitored packet, and we don't want to be seeing that right now while we're giving instructions. So I'm going to turn the monitor off by typing M space OFF. Now let's do that again. My call space K8BZ sets your call sign to the right command in the TNC. If you want to verify that, you can just type my call and push enter, and it'll tell you what the current setting is. So we have our call sign set. And here I want to talk more about the format of the commands. Let me do another help command. We'll get a clean, let me clear the screen. I'm going to do a Control A, select everything on the screen, hit delete. That's going to clear the screen. And I'm going to type H for help, and we'll get the commands again. Now the commands as they're displayed there are the entire name of the command. Now you don't have to type the entire name. You can type an abbreviated version of the command. If you have a command that you don't know the abbreviated version, you can look in the manual for your TNC. The way it describes the abbreviated versions of the command is putting the full command is spelled out, but the abbreviated version is in uppercase, and the remainder that's in lowercase is part of the full command. So in other words, when you see the command mycall in the TNC, it's going to look like this, mycall. The my part is the abbreviated version of the mycall command. So I can type myk8bz, and it'll set the command. If you mistype a command, let's say I want to set the mycall command, K8bz, I have too many L's in there, it's going to tell you it doesn't understand the command by responding with a A. In other words, the TNC is saying, I don't understand what you want me to do. So you have some error in the command or in the parameter for the command. Now I can type my call correctly and then set a bunch of gibberish for a call sign, and it's going to say it ignored the input because it doesn't meet the proper format for a call sign. So you can find out what a command means by typing question mark and the we'll just pick any command, delete. That's the character used to delete the last character in a line. That's a description of what the command is. To find out what that's set to, we'll just type delete without any parameter, and it'll tell you what it's set at. To delete the last character in a line, you hold Control key and type the letter H. The $08, that's the hexadecimal notation version of a Control H. Control H is hex character 08. You probably don't need to concern yourself with that part, but I just wanted to let you know what that meant so you would realize what it is. It's not an error or a mistake. That's the hex character for Control H. So we're basically wanting to describe to you the command mode, the converse mode that we're in now, how to get back to the command mode by doing a Control C. So you can do the entire version of the command mycall, or you can do the short version my. And if you type something in an error, the TNC is going to let you know it didn't understand the command by returning an A and telling you that it didn't understand the command. So that basically, this section is just basically to show you what the command formats are, how to switch from command mode, which is communicating with the TNC to set TNC commands and parameters, and the conversation mode, which actually transmits, and what the command format is, that you can use the entire command name or you can use the command shortcut version. And if you want, this might be a good place to pause the video and go back and practice switching from command mode to conversation mode and entering your call sign with the mycall command. In this portion of the video, we're going to describe two settings in the TNC called the new user and terminal mode. Now this is a setting that may be unique to the Cantronics TNC. You may not have these commands in other brands of TNCs. If you don't, you can just skip through this portion and continue on, but for Cantronics users you need to know the difference between the terminal and new user mode, and we'll describe that now. We'll switch back to the dumb terminal screen, And at the command prompt, I'm just going to check the monitor function, make sure the monitor is turned off, and it is. Now, the new user and terminal mode, you switch between those with the interface command. Now, I'm going to display the information on the interface command. The abbreviation is INT. Now, these are all of the possible settings for the interface command. We're only going to be using the terminal setting for the interface command. Right now, if I type INT, it's going to tell us we're in the new user mode. In the new user mode, you have a limited command set. I'm going to type H for help so we can see the commands that are available in new user mode. There's not very many. The new user mode is designed for new users, so they have a simplified set of commands. It's highly simplified. But we need the full set of commands, so we're going to change the interface command to terminal. Now, there you see these other possible settings up here. There's terminal, new user, BBS, KISS, XKISS, host. You need to be aware that if you inadvertently change the interface command to some of these others, like for example KISS or host, you may have difficulty getting them out of those modes. The TNCs won't function correctly for using packet in the way we're going to train. Some of these modes are for software applications only, to put them into KISS mode or into host mode, and then when that application is closed, it takes them out of KISS and host mode and automatically puts them back in terminal mode. Now, if you inadvertently set the interface command to KISS or host, you can still get it out of those modes and back into terminal mode, but it's not a simple process. You will need to refer to the manual for your TNC, and there's a specific set of key inputs that have to be made in a specific order in order to get it out of those modes. So I just want you to be aware that the interface command isn't something you should experiment with. We're going to set it in terminal mode, and we're going to leave it in terminal mode, and when you're exploring your TNC and looking at some of the commands, remember the interface command isn't one that you should experiment with. So we're going to go down here to the command prompt. We're going to check the interface command is set to new user. Now I can type the entire word interface to change it, or I can just use the abbreviated version, interface terminal, and I can even abbreviate the parameter terminal. I don't have to type out the entire word. I can just type term. Okay, now when you change a command or a parameter in the TNC, it's going to tell you what the previous setting was. The previous setting was new user. It returns that interface new user after we enter in INT TER. Now to verify the current setting, we're going to type INT. That's going to tell us the current setting is terminal. Now if I type the H command, we'll see the command list that's available to us in terminal mode. And you'll see it's much larger than the command set that was available to us in new user mode. So we have all of these commands now available to us. Don't be intimidated by this long list of commands. You won't need to change many of them, but you will need to be somewhat familiar with a handful of them, and we'll try to make that as painless and easy as we can. So let's clear the screen by doing a Control-A to select all and push delete, and we will move on to the next section of this video. As you saw in the previous section of this video, when we switched the interface command to terminal, that gave us a very long list of commands, and there are groups of commands that have a related function. There are commands that deal specifically with setting the identification parameters in your TNC. There's a handful of commands that deal specifically with the node function. There's a handful that deal specifically with your bulletin board, packet bulletin board functions. And it would be handy if we could just see those commands listed separately and see what their settings are so we can make the necessary changes to those. Well, fortunately, in a Cantronics TNC, let's get back to the terminal mode. Whoops, that's PBBS. I'm sorry, let's switch to, there we go. Now we're at the dumb terminal. Fortunately, there's a display command. It's display, and if we type display and push enter, it's going to give us the entire list of commands in the terminal mode and their settings. So the command is displayed on the left, and the setting for that command is displayed on the right. Now we can also use the display command to just display related groups of commands. So let's do a question mark display to see what the available groups are. The available groups are, this stands for asynchronous characters. This is the special character displays. This is the GPS related commands if your TNC has the GPS features. These are the identification commands, and so on. So we will be primarily wanting to look at the identification commands, the monitor commands, and the bulletin board commands. So let's take a look at how these would be displayed if we just want to display related groups of commands. If we do a display I, the short version of display identification, and push enter, this is where I did the display I. These are all the identification commands. So it gives you the ones specifically dealing with the identification settings. So I'm going to do a select all and we'll clear the screen. Let's do a display monitor. Display M. These tell you all of the monitor commands and what their current settings are. We'll clear the screen again. Let's do display P for PBBS, or Packet Bulletin Board Station. It's going to give you all of the commands that are specifically related to the Packet Bulletin Board functions. So the display command is going to be used a lot just to display those specific groups. So we can see what the settings are and change the ones that need changed. So the display command is a very useful command. Let's take a look at some of the others. Now we're not going to be using really much of the link commands. You don't need to worry about that for the most part. There's a couple in there that have to do with some general settings and node settings that we'll take a look at. Character. Let's clear the screen. Display character. These are special characters. For example, the one we already know is the command prompt is a Control C. The hex equivalent of a Control C is hex 03. To cancel a packet is Control Y. Now these can be changed, but you don't ever want to change those. You may not find your way back into how to put them back in the default settings. The one you're really going to use is to bring up the command prompt, which is Control C. Some of these, under very specific circumstances, the only one I can think that you may ever use will be Control Y, and even that's unnecessary, or Control X. Cancel packet and cancel line, and I won't even bother to describe what those are for right now, but for the most part you're not going to need to use those. So the display command, we're going to use that to display identification settings. We'll use it to display the monitor settings, and we'll use it to display the bulletin board settings. So those are the groups of commands that we're going to be setting in this video. So we'll delete all that, and we'll get ready to move on to the next section. This might be a good place to pause the video and go in and practice using the display command to display different groups of commands, different groups of related commands. Do a question mark DISP to get the groups, and then display some of the various groups of commands together in your TNC. In this portion of the video, we're going to be setting the identification parameters of the TNC for general packet connections, and for the node connection, and for the packet bulletin board station. So let's switch over to the terminal program, and we're going to use the display command to display the identification parameters. We're going to use the abbreviated version for both the display and ID, and we'll take a look at the commands. Now most of these are already set for my TNC, But the first thing we'll need to set is the My Call. That's your primary station call sign. So on your terminal, you should type My, the abbreviated form of My Call, and your primary station call sign and push Enter. That will set your primary station call sign. So if a station wants to connect to your packet station to hold, as they refer to it, a keyboard-to-keyboard QSO, where you type back and forth to one another, what you type on your terminal is sent to the station you're connected to. What they type on their terminal is sent back to your station and displayed on your terminal screen. They would want to connect to your call sign that's set in your My Call command. Now, on your My Call command, you can also save a greeting message, and that's done with the Connect Text command. And you can see how mine is set here. My Connect Text command is set to, this is Steve, K8BZ in Gladwin, Michigan, grid EN73. Now you can put anything you want in there, or you don't need to use it at all if you don't want to. But it's customary to put something in there at least to tell them where the station is located. So if someone connects to your My Call call sign, they'll get this greeting message and know who you are and where you are. So at the command prompt, to set your Connect Text message, you type the abbreviated version, CT, for Connect Text, and type whatever greeting you want, something along the lines of what I did, but you can use anything you want. This is Steve, K8BZ in Gladwin, Mich, grid EN73. And then it will display what you put in the Connect Text command. Now, you also need to set your Connect Message command. Your Connect Message can be turned on or off. There's a couple other settings, but we're only going to deal with on or off. If your Connect Message command is turned off, now I just turned it off. The previous setting was on. This tells you what the previous setting was when you change it. If it's off, if they connect to you, they're not going to get this greeting message. So we want the Connect Message command to be on. So we've got that all set. If someone connects to K8BZ, they're going to get this greeting message sent to them. Now, all stations, it's customary for all packet stations to enable the digipeat command, so people will be able to use your station as a digipeater to reach more distant stations. To do that, you need to turn the digipeat command on. So they can use your station call, K8BZ, as a digipeater to reach more distant stations that they couldn't reach directly. The digipeat command has three possible settings: off, on protocol information only, or UI only, and on. We won't worry about UI only. That's used in APRS functions. So if you turn the digipeat function off, then your station won't allow digipeating through your station. But it's the polite operator's responsibility to leave their digipeat function on. So we're going to turn digi, and the short version of digipeater is DIG. We're going to turn it on. So now our station can function as a digipeater. So we pretty much have our station identification parameters for our basic station enabled. Now we also want to enable our node. A node is another way other stations can use your stations to reach stations that are beyond their range for their own station. Digipeater is one method and a node is another, and I'll have an individual training session just on nodes and digipeaters to teach you the difference between the two, and when to use a node, when to use digipeaters, which one is best in which application. But for a node, we're going to go back and display the identification parameters. You need to set your node call sign. Your node call sign is set with the mynode command. Customarily, your node call sign is your primary station call sign with the supplemental station identifier of -7. SSIDs are just numbers put on the end of your call sign, separated from your call sign with a dash, because you will need a few different packet radio call signs, and they need to be distinguished from one another. So on your terminal, you should set your MYN is the shortcut version of my node, or the abbreviated version, to whatever your primary call sign is, -7. With a node, to use your node, they actually have to connect to your node to connect to a distant station. With a digipeater, they don't actually connect to your digipeater. They just use your station to repeat the packets without having to connect to your station to do it. Now, once your node call sign is set, you also have to set a command called num nodes, or the number of nodes. And we'll look at what the command's explanation is for that. It's the number of KA node channels. Now, a KA node is just Cantronic's version of a node. There are various types of network nodes, JNOS, lots of other network node functions, and even modern Cantronics TNCs have a network node function. But we're not going to train on network nodes. My personal feeling on that is that they are basically unnecessary. If you understand how to use nodes, you can use them without having the node do all your thinking for you. But that's just my personal feeling. But we're just going to set the KA node. Now, num nodes tells the TNC how many users can actually use the node at the same time. You can have up to 10, but it's better to keep it limited to 2 or 3 maximum. I like to keep mine set at 2. So I'm going to set num nodes to 2. If you change the num nodes number, the previous setting of mine already was 2, but I'm going to change it to 2, or 3 rather. I'm going to change num nodes to 3. If you change that, it's going to cause a software reset in the TNC, and you'll get the sign-on message. There are a few commands that do that. So we'll change num nodes to 3. It resets the software, basically does a restart of the TNC, and you get the startup message of the TNC when you do that. So we're going to change num nodes back to 2. We'll get a reset and the sign-on message again. So now our node command is set. We've enabled the node function with the num nodes command. If you want to disable your node, you can set num nodes to 0. So the number of users of your node is 0, and that will disable it, and they won't be able to connect to your node. Num nodes 0, and now the node function is disabled. We're going to set it back to 2. Num nodes 2 does another software reset, and we're good to go. So we've set our my call. We've enabled digipeating, we've enabled our node, and the last thing to do is enable the packet bulletin board settings, but there are a few more on the packet bulletin board side, so this would probably be a good place to pause the video and go in and set up your my call, enable your connect message with the C text and C message commands, set up your node call, and then set your num nodes to 2 or 3. And actually, I forgot one. Let's go back to the terminal for a minute. You can have a greeting on your node when someone connects to your node in the same manner that you have a greeting connected or attached to your keyboard connection. You do that with the node text command. Node text on mine is currently set at this is K8BZ, KA node in Gladwin. Tells them where the node is. It gives a grid square. Again, you can put anything in here you want, but you can set your node text for a greeting when someone connects to your node. This is and I'm just typing the same thing, KA node in Gladwin. Okay, so the node text is set. Now we'll go back to the little placard here. So we're going to pause here. I recommend you pause the video and set your my call, my node, num nodes, connect text, connect message, and your node text commands as described in this portion of the video. And then when you come back and have all that set, we will resume and go on to the packet bulletin board settings. Okay, if you've paused the video and resuming at this point, hopefully you didn't have any problems setting up those parameters for your call, digipeater, and node. And now it's time to do the packet bulletin board settings. So we'll go back to the terminal program. I'm going to do a select all using Control A and hit delete to clean up the screen. And we're going to do a display of the packet bulletin board commands. Now, there's not very many commands here, but there's a little more to this than some of the others. Let me just go down the list, and I'm going to describe what these commands are. PBBS is the amount of memory that's reserved to store messages in your bulletin board in your TNC. Mine is set at 480 characters or bytes of data that can be used to store messages. How much memory you have available depends on what all is installed, how much RAM is installed in your TNC, and it also is determined by how many users you enable to use your TNC at one time, how many people can connect at one time, and how many nodes. The more users you allow and the more node connections you allow, the less memory is available for use exclusively in your bulletin board. If you put a number in there that it doesn't accept, it will let you know value is out of range. So just trim that down to a reasonable value that it will accept. This command, PB forward 0 every 0 disabled. In a later video, I'll describe what this is. The sysop for your BBS, which is you, and anyone you allow to be a sysop for your BBS, can cause your bulletin board to forward certain messages to another bulletin board automatically. That's what that is for. It's packet bulletin board forward. I'm not going to describe it any more than that, but just leave it set at 0 so it's disabled. And how to do that will be explained when I get into the sysop responsibilities and functions. PB header. Let's take a look at that. Saves routing information in messages. That is a good idea to leave that on. Routing information is required if you're going to automatically forward messages. So go ahead and leave PB header on. The PB hold command is another one that has to do with automatically forwarding messages. You, as the sysop of your packet bulletin board station, are responsible for making sure that your messages are appropriate, that they're not illegal or contain inappropriate content. If you allow messages to be forwarded before you actually get a chance to review them, under the FCC rules, you are not responsible for the content of the messages or any FCC rules violations until you become aware of it. But the PB hold function will hold any messages that are eligible to be forwarded until you release them. Now, if you don't have PB forward enabled, it doesn't matter what setting you have PB hold on, but just so you don't have to worry about it later on, go ahead and turn PB hold on. And it won't have any effect on the operation of your bulletin board until you enable forwarding. And if you never enable forwarding, it won't have any effect on your bulletin board. But if you enable forwarding, it won't forward any eligible messages unless you release them to be forwarded. The next command, PB kill forward, is off. What that is another forwarding command. If a message is automatically forwarded, you can either have it remain in your bulletin board or you can have it deleted from your bulletin board after it's forwarded. What this is packet bulletin board kill upon being forwarded, PB kill forward. So if that's turned on, if it forwards a message to another bulletin board automatically, it will delete it off yours. And it's your personal preference whether you kill it off your bulletin board or delete it or leave it on. Now, later on, when we start dealing with Outpost Packet Message Manager, we're going to be talking about several stations providing communications to served agencies in an emergency situation. We can select that option in Outpost to kill messages off the bulletin board once they're read. And we are definitely going to do that. We don't want those messages that have already been read and are delivered to their destination to accumulate on the bulletin board. For two reasons. You might exceed the memory capacity of the bulletin board, and it won't save any new messages. And even if it doesn't exceed the memory capacity, every time an emergency station connects to the bulletin board to get their traffic, it's going to have to go through listing what can turn out to be a very long list of messages if they're not deleted from the bulletin board after they're read and downloaded from the bulletin board. So for the time being, PB kill forward doesn't matter if it's on or off. Okay, now we're going to describe the PB list command. The PB list command affects how the mail light on your TNC functions. There's a light on the front of a Cantronics TNC that's labeled mail. That light lights up when someone is connected to your bulletin board. When they disconnect, that light goes out. If they leave a message on your bulletin board addressed to you and it hasn't been read, that light will blink after they disconnect. So if you come in and see the mail light on your TNC blinking, then you know that there's an unread message for you in your mailbox in your TNC. Now, you can use the PB list command to add call signs that will be indicated with the mail light blinking if there are messages for them. For example, it's hard to really think of a good example how you might want to use that, but let's say you have a field day operation or something like that going on, and there's going to be several operators there at the field day site, and you're going to have a packet station running. You may want the mail light to blink when any message is left in your bulletin board for any of the call signs that are involved in the field day operation. It's kind of a vague, not a very practical use, but that's what that's all about. You can add another. Right now, my mail light will only blink if someone leaves a message for K8BZ. If there's someone visiting my station and I want them to get that blink indication, I just add their call sign to the PB list command. You can turn it on or off and then list the call signs separated by commas. But with the PB list is off currently, and there are no call signs in the list. So I have been a packet operator for 20 years, never used it, but not to say that someone else might find a use for that. PBLO is PB list order. That determines whether the messages are listed from newest to oldest or oldest to newest. PBLO. It will either list oldest messages first on the list or newest messages first on the list, and you can look up fixed or variable for other information on that command in the documentation for your TNC. PB mail. When someone connects to your bulletin board, if there are messages for them in the bulletin board that haven't been read, right after the greeting text that you put in with the ctext command, you can also enable the PB mail command, and they'll get a one-line message saying you have unread mail. Mine is turned off, so why don't we go ahead and turn that on? PB mail. Whoops, let's spell it right. On. Okay, now I'm going to clear the screen and get a clean display of the PBBS commands. PB mail is now on, so if somebody connects, it'll say you have mail if there are new messages for them. PB person, generally you want that turned off. If PB person is on, then the only messages that can be left in your bulletin board would be for you, either your my call sign or your PBBS call sign. In other words, someone else wouldn't be able to connect to your mailbox and leave a message for anyone other than you if that's turned on. So we want that turned on. Or I'm sorry, we want it turned off so they can leave messages for whoever they want. PB reverse is another mail forwarding command. If you enable the PB forward command, you may also want to enable the PB reverse forward command. If your bulletin board forwards mail to another bulletin board, after it sends those messages, it will see if there are any messages for you on the other bulletin board, and it will automatically retrieve them and bring them back to your bulletin board. So we'll train on that in a subsequent video for sysops, but for the time being you want that turned off. PB size, that's how you can put a limit on the size of messages that are allowed on your bulletin board. The size is the number of characters. If the size is 0, that means there is no limit to the size of the messages. Typically you'll want to leave that set at 0. PB users are how many people can be connected to your bulletin board at any one time. You can have up to 10, but that's just like the numnodes command. That's a very impractically high number. You want to limit that, and I keep mine set at 1. If 2 people try to connect to my bulletin board, the second one will get a disconnect message telling them that the BBS is busy. So 1 at a time is not a bad way to go with bulletin board connections. Again, it's a personal preference, but I wouldn't recommend maybe 2, but as far as I'm concerned, 1 is a better way to go. That one person can take care of his business and disconnect, and the second person can get in and do whatever they have to do, reading or leaving messages, and probably more efficient than they could both try to do it at the same time. The ptext command, again, this is the bulletin board's greeting message when somebody connects. So you can put anything you want in there, and I just put in this is K8BZ PBBS in Gladwin, Michigan, grid Echo November 73. It's very similar to the connect text message, and it's very similar to the node connect message greeting that's programmed in. Now, the one that isn't shown here is the bulletin board call sign. That actually is in the identification group of commands. So I did a display ID, and here's where we find that. The PBBS customarily is your primary call sign with an SSID of -1. So on your TNC, you should set my PBBS to your call sign -1. Okay, now let's go back to the display. Let's clean the screen up first, and we'll display. Whoops. Only need to do it once. Display the packet bulletin board parameters. Just a review here. You can set your bulletin board memory size at a large number so long as you don't exceed the maximum capacity available. PB forward you want disabled, so set PB forward to 0. PB header is on. PB hold is on. PB kill when forwarding is off. That can be either off or on for right now. It doesn't matter. PB list, that's for other people that will get the blinking mail light on the front of your TNC. You can just leave that at the default setting of off. That's a very infrequently needed. PB list order, the default is new, which means the newer messages are going to be at the top of the list. The PB you have mail message when they connect, if they have unread mail, you can turn that on. PB person is off. That means that they can leave mail for other people besides you. This is the PB reverse forward command, and since we're not doing any automated forwarding, it doesn't matter whether that's on or off for the time being. PB size is the size of messages that can be left. If it's 0, there is no size limit. PB users at 1 is my recommendation, and the ptext, whatever you want for a greeting message. And that enables your packet bulletin board station. Let's see if I This would be a good place again to pause the video, and you can go back and set up your bulletin board commands. In this section of the TNC Command Setup video, we're going to discuss the monitor commands. Let's get back over to our terminal screen. There we are. Nope, that's not it. Sorry. Went by it. One more time. There we go. We'll get back over to our terminal screen. I'm going to clear it and get a clean screen. The monitor commands determine what your TNC will monitor when you're just looking at the blank terminal screen and you're not connected to anyone. You can not monitor anything at all, or you can monitor certain things and ignore some other things. You can exclude stations from stations that you will monitor if, for example, they're sending beacons every minute or so and you just don't want to watch this continuous scroll of the same beacon going across your screen. So let's display the monitor functions. There's only a few of them here that we really need to be concerned with, and I think I'll skip all of the ones that are unnecessary and get right to here's the monitor function. The shortcut for the monitor, either turning it on or off, is just the letter M. If we type the letter M on, that turns the monitor on. So whatever is eligible to be monitored based on these other command settings will be displayed on your screen. If we want to turn the monitor off, you just type M off and it will shut the monitor back off. So normally you just leave your monitor on and then decide what you want monitored. The MAL, or monitor all command, if that's on, you will monitor connected packets and unconnected packets. So you're monitoring all packets. If monitor is turned off, then you're not monitoring unconnected packets. You're only going to monitor packets that are exchanged between two stations that are connected and communicating with each other. Generally, I leave the MAL command, or monitor all command, turned on. Monitor M beacon is monitoring beacons. I'll explain beacons in the next section. Beacons are occasional transmissions that stations can make to announce various things, that they're on the air, or a new path to their station, or some other thing or announcement that they just want to be made periodically on the air. Normally that function is turned on. The next one, MCON, is monitor while you're connected. That normally should be turned off. You don't want to monitor other stations' packets when you're connected to a specific station. When you're connected to a specific station, the TNC will automatically turn your monitor off, so the only thing you're going to see displayed on your terminal is data from the station you're connected to. Then when you disconnect from the station, if your monitor was previously on, your TNC will turn it back on again. So this one, MCON, or monitor while you're connected, that should be turned off. MCOM, that can go either way. That monitors communications packets that are kind of control packets that are exchanged between TNCs. That doesn't really contain any MCOM. Let me do this. MCOM. It monitors disconnect and unconnected administrative frames. Unconnected administrative frames are reject packets where one station will send a reject packet to another station telling them that it received a packet out of sequence and to resend it in sequence, or a reject packet because it detected an error in the packet. If you're doing some diagnostic information, trying to find out why a path isn't working, you may want that on, but for the most part you want that MCOM turned off, and actually I have it turned on mine, but I'm going to leave it that way for the time being. Monitor header, that's a good one to leave on. If header is on, then the call signs of the stations communicating will be on one line, and the actual data that is sent will be on the next line. And it just makes it a little more organized screen to read when you're looking at the monitored packets. This is another administrative frame. Monitor RESP monitors receive ready, receive not ready, and reject frames. That's another diagnostic thing. It's up to you whether you want to monitor that or not, but you might, there's no information in those packets. They're just administrative packets between stations. MRPT will let you monitor the digipeaters in a path. Sometimes that actually can be helpful. If it's on, if two stations are communicating via a digipeater, you will see the digipeater in the path. Now let's take a look here. Here's a monitored packet, and I can show you an example of the header being on. This is WB8FYR-3 transmitting an identification, and this is the date and time stamp it puts on. This tells what kind of packet it is. It's a unprotocol or unconnected information packet. And here is the information in that ID packet. It just tells what the station is, the node call sign and the bulletin board call sign, and that it's a special network node packet, or station rather. This is another unconnected information packet from the same station. If the header line wasn't on, this mail for WB8FYR, that would be way over here on the same line. It just makes it easier to put the ID information on one line and the actual data on the next line. Now I'm going to turn the monitor back off so we're not going to see any more of those while we're going over this instruction. We'll display the ID parameters again. Or not ID, we want the monitor. Display the monitor parameters. We were down to monitor repeaters, which displays the digipeaters. So that we want that on. M stamp, we want that on. That time and date stamps the packets. Monitor transmit will show your own packets on the monitor, and that's good to have that on. Yeah, private ID, monitors of all packets regardless of private ID. That's a good idea to have that on also. Sup list, leave that off, and trace, leave trace off. And that pretty much concludes the settings that you need here. So we want monitor on, mol on, mcom on, rpt on, mstamp on, C stamp on, and pretty much the rest you don't need to do anything with, and that will set up your monitor functions. There's another command related to the monitor commands that's the monitor heard. Your TNC will remember a list of call signs that it last heard, and it will save the date and time that those call signs were heard. So you can see basically what stations have been active on the packet frequency and the last time they were heard on the frequency. The monitor heard command, the long version is mheard, the short version is mh. So if I type mh and push enter, we're going to get a list of call signs that were monitored on the frequency. Some of these have SSIDs and some don't. Some of them will have an asterisk after the call sign. That asterisk means that that station was heard via a digipeater. There's two versions of the monitor heard command. Let me clear the screen. This is the basic monitor heard list that gives you the station call sign that was heard and the date and time it was last heard. Then there's monitor heard space L for long. Monitor heard long. This gives us a little more information. Let me clear the screen and do that. Monitor heard long. Okay, now we get the call sign of the station heard, who that station was transmitting to. That's what this, think of this as an arrow pointing at the station that was transmitted to. So WB8EOC-7 was sending to K8BZ, and that's the last time that WB8EOC-7 was heard, on 3/26/16 at 23:33 local time. Now, if we go down to one that was heard through a digipeater, like right here, there's two lines involved here. This is the station that was heard. It was transmitting an ID packet at that date and time via a digipeater, and the digipeater was Tawas. Now there's an asterisk by Tawas also. This tells us that Tawas, the digipeater, was the station that was actually heard, not KD8BJQ. We didn't hear that station. We heard Tawas digipeating a packet from WD8BJQ. So that's useful information, because if we wanted to connect to WB8 or WD8BJQ, we might want to attempt that connection via the Tawas digipeater, because that's the station that we actually heard that we know could reach WD8BJQ. Now, some of that is subject to band conditions. There are times, unlike the ionization of the ionosphere, that affect communications on HF. Typically what affects longer range communications on VHF on 2 meters is ducking, where there are drastic temperature variations in changes in elevation in the atmosphere. So that's why you notice, for the most part, good band openings on 2 meters at or near sunup and sundown generally, because the sun is heating up the upper atmosphere before dawn and shortly after dawn, and creates a ducking situation. Typically I notice it more in the mornings than in the evenings, but you can notice it in the evenings also. So it doesn't have a lot to do with the sunspot cycle. It has more to do with seasonal changes. You notice that more in the fall and spring than you do in the dead of winter or in the midst of summer, because the temperatures have become more stable with variations in altitude in the atmosphere. But at any rate, I guess we don't need to do a propagation presentation here. Here's another example here of one via digipeaters. Let's take a look at this. KD8HBK was sending a beacon at this date and time via 2 digipeaters to Tawas, and then the next digipeater in the chain was ALPE00. Now this tells us that we actually heard that again via the Tawas digipeater. Now Tawas was again transmitting that on to ALPE00, but we didn't hear that. That's out of range of us. So we heard it via Tawas. Now here's another one here that was sent via a digipeater, but there's no asterisk here. So we actually heard this one directly, even though they were sending it to a digipeater, W8DMI. So it was WB8EOC-1, which is a bulletin board, sending a packet to W8COP-3 via W8DMI. But we actually heard that packet directly from the sending station. Even though there was a digipeater in the path, we didn't hear the digipeater, we heard the sending station. So that's an explanation of the monitor heard list. Now there's another version of that called the node heard list, NDH. Now these are nodes. Remember, nodes have a specific call sign. In order to use a node, you have to connect to the call sign. So these are nodes, and just like digipeaters, they have an asterisk after the node call sign if the node was heard through a digipeater. NDHL. Now let's see here. NDH. Long, short, or clear. NDHL. Node heard L. There we go. It had a conflict with another command that had similar set of first letters. So at any rate here, this is similar to the monitor heard list. This is the IOSCO node, and in parentheses it'll tell you the actual call sign associated with that node, which is KD8HBK, and that was heard via Tawas digipeater that was sending to the Alpina digipeater. This is the Fenton node, and at the Fenton node they have their my call set to Fenton also. Now you may think that that's an FCC rule violation, but as long as they have their HID command on, and it will send their actual call sign, their FCC call sign, that would still be something doable. But this looks like there might be an issue there where they have their my call also set to Fenton. So maybe that's something that could be looked into. The rest of these look good. These are all nodes. All of the call signs over here are nodes, and these should be the FCC call sign associated with that node. So those are two other functions that kind of go along with the monitor herd, the monitor commands. It's the monitor herd for regular packet stations and the node herd for nodes. You can clear the monitor herd list if you want, and it will start saving them over again. But unless you're changing locations or for some reason want to clear the list, that normally wouldn't be something that you would want to do. You could just let it continue to bump older call signs off the list when newer ones come on. So that pretty much concludes the monitor command section of the presentation. This would be a good place to pause the video and go practice some of the monitor commands, monitor herd commands, and setting your monitor commands. And then when you come back, resume the video and we'll continue to the next section. In this section of the video, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping with just some commands that don't really belong in any specific group. They're the clock command, the htext command, max users, and status commands. Some of these are immediate commands, and we'll explain that. Let's go to our terminal screen. The first thing we're going to describe is htext. The htext stands for hierarchical text. In Michigan, the generic htext command is michigan.usa.n. We want this to be uppercase. This is one command where if we enter it in lowercase, it stays lowercase. It won't convert it to uppercase. So we want this in uppercase. OAM. There we go. Okay, now this is the generic version. By generic, I mean in any state, this would be the format you would use. It goes from the most specific location to the least specific location. So if you're in Michigan, you want michigan.usa.North America, which is abbreviated NOAM. If you're in Tennessee, that would be tn.usa.NOAM. So fairly simple. The htext command needs to be set if you're going to enable auto forwarding from your BBS. Now, even though we're not doing that just yet, it's a good idea to set your htext command and leave it. You'll never have to reset it unless you move to another state or country. The forwarding path and the location of the forwarding stations will be saved in any messages that are forwarded. It's an FCC requirement. So the htext command, your PBBS won't auto forward if your htext command is blank. Now it's also possible to set your htext command with even a little more specific information than just the state. It's begun with a pound sign. In my case, that would be Northeast Michigan, and again, let's make it uppercase, NEMI, Northeast Michigan, Michigan, USA, NOAM. If you don't know what region you should use in Michigan, just use Michigan, michigan.usa.NOAM for your htext command. Okay, let's clear the screen, and we are going to discuss the clock command. The command there is daytime. This is where you actually set the date and time clock in your TNC. Your TNC has a clock built into it. Once you set it once, if you're using Outpost regularly, you won't need to reset it. The clock in your TNC is not the most accurate timepiece in the world. You can buy an optional high accuracy clock to install in your TNC. I don't recommend getting it. It's unnecessary. It's just an extra expense that you don't need to do. If you want to know what time your clock is set, just type DA and it'll tell you. It's March 27, 2016 at 13:27 and 33 seconds local time. Now we're going to keep our clock set to local time. We're on VHF where the communications is local. Our ultimate goal here is providing communications locally for served agencies, and using Zulu time or Greenwich Mean Time will be meaningless to those people. If messages are time and date stamped with Zulu time, it could cause confusion when you're providing emergency communications on a local basis. So we're going to set our TNC clock to local time. The way you would set your clock, now let's just assume it was July 4th, 2015 at 12:30 p.m. Okay, we'd type DA, the short version of daytime, and we would follow this format. July, and again I said it was July, so it's going to be 2015, so we put a 2-digit year. Month is July 07, day is 04. So far we have 2015, 07 for July, 04 for the day, and then the hour is 12:30 p.m. Now seconds are optional. If you don't enter seconds, it's going to start the clock at 0 seconds. So now if I type DA, there's the time. 7/4/2015, 12:30 and 3 seconds. Now let's set that back to the correct local time. My system clock down here in the lower right hand corner is accurate. So we're going to set that clock back to day 2016, 03, 27, 13:29. And again, you can enter seconds if you want to, but if you don't enter seconds, it's just going to assume 0 and it'll enter the zeros for you for the seconds. You want to set your clock accurately because when date and time stamps messages left in your bulletin board station, you want it to show the real date and time, not some arbitrary date that just has never been set. If you start connecting to people's bulletin boards and listing the messages, you'll see that a lot of people don't bother to set their clock. If you're doing auto forwarding, you need to have your clock set. I guess the rest of the stuff, it isn't that important, but if you're going to show you're a competent operator, please set your clock. Once you set it, and if you're using Outpost, every time Outpost, not the dumb terminal that we're using now, every time Outpost Packet Message Manager connects to your TNC, it's automatically going to set your TNC clock to your computer system clock. So if your computer is online and has some type of automatic clock synchronization enabled on your system computer, it's automatically going to set your TNC clock to the accurate time that's on your PC clock. So if you're using Outpost, why do you need to go spend extra money to put a high accuracy clock in your TNC? Outpost is going to set it to your system clock time every time Outpost connects. So that's how to set your clock. You want to set your clock now, and you should be good to go, because in the next video or two we're going to actually be using Outpost. Okay, the next one is max users. This is how many people can connect to your TNC at the same time. How many people can actually you communicate with in a connected status at the same time. You can have up to 10. That's far too many to manage without software that manages them, and really 1 is enough. I keep mine set at 3, and I don't know that I've ever had more than 1 or 2 people connected to me at once. Probably haven't had 2 people connected to me at the same time in the past several years. But it is possible. That really comes in more handy with special software that will let you put the next connect in a separate window all by itself, so you can switch from one window to the next if you're connected to 2 people at the same time. But the default setting on yours is going to be 10. If you didn't change it, when you check max users, it's going to show 10. So set max users down to 2 or 3. I'm going to set mine at 2. And like num nodes, this causes a software reset. and will reset your TNC and give you the sign-on message. The last immediate command I want to show you is the status command. And the status command will show you the state of all of your available streams as they're described. A stream is where you connect to if you connect to a station, you're going to be connected on stream A. If another station connects to you while you're connected, because I have max users set at 2, they're going to be connected on stream B. The available streams are A through J. If I set max users at 2, there's only 2 available streams, stream A and stream B, just for basic connections. Now, the status command is going to tell you what the status is of all of the streams on your computer. It's going to tell you the status of your bulletin board, if anyone's connected. It's going to tell you the status of your nodes, all of the channels on your node, whether anyone is connected and using your node. Now, the basic status command, when I push S, is going to say stream A, and the IO means that's the input-output stream, and the status is disconnected. Now, if I want to see the status of all of them, I'm going to do status space long. So let's take a look at what, let me clear the screen and get that status long. Okay, stream A is the input-output stream, and it's disconnected. Stream B is also disconnected. The BBS is disconnected. These are the node channels, 2 channels on the node. AN is disconnected, A out is disconnected on the node, and B in and out are all disconnected. Now, I'm going to do some connects here just to show you the difference. I'm going to connect to W8GDW. That connection is going to be made on stream A. And just for fun, don't worry about this. I'm going to change streams. This is the stream switch. I'm going to change to stream B. On stream B, I'm going to connect to WB8 EOC. So at this time, I'm connected to 2 stations at the same time. I'm connected to W8GDW on stream A, and I'm connected to WB8 EOC on stream B. So I'm going to go back to the command prompt. Let me clear the screen first. Now, I did a Control A and went back to the command prompt. Remember, in the command mode, I'm not sending anything over the air, so this isn't going to transmit anything to either one of these 2 stations I'm connected to. I'm just going to do a status check long, and then it's going to show stream A is connected to W8GDW. Stream B is connected to WB8 EOC, and now stream B is the input-output stream. That means if I go back to the conversation mode, whatever command I send is going to be sent on stream B to this station. So if I want to list traffic in W8GDW, I have to switch streams back to stream A. But I'm not worried about that just yet. Now let's go back to the command mode. Stream B is the input-output stream. So if I type the letter B, go back to the conversation mode. I'm going to send to B the disconnect command. That should disconnect me on stream B. I'll do a status long. Now I'm disconnected on stream B, which is still the input-output stream, but I'm currently connected to W8GDW on stream A. The stream switch is the vertical line, so I'm going to do a vertical line A, and that is going to put me back on channel A for the input-output stream. Status long, still connected to W8GDW on stream A, and now stream A is the input-output stream because I switched back to stream A at the command prompt using the vertical line. This is more to show you what this status command is all about rather than changing streams. So don't worry about this stream switch business. Just know that you can do a status check, status space long, and if you have a lot of activity on your TNC, you may want to take a look at what's going on, who's using it, and where are they connected. Are they in your bulletin board? Are they connected to your keyboard? Are they using your node? And with the status command, you can do that. Status short just shows your A stream. Status long shows everything that's enabled. So I have 2 available streams just for keyboard connections, 1 bulletin board user at a time, and 2 node users at a time. And that's sufficient. And really, if those were just all set to 1, it would still probably be enough. Okay, so that wraps up the command settings. This was a long video, but I tried to break it up in usable sections, so if you couldn't set through the whole thing, that you could just come back and pick up where you left off. From here on out, we're actually going to be doing some communicating and not just setting things up. So this was the work part of getting used to and getting ready for packet radio, and we're actually going to begin the communications aspect of it in the next video. So hope to see you then. If you have any questions or problems, please feel free to email me at k8bz@arrl.net. Thank you.